Criterion D is all about using maths to solve real-world problems. Let's look at how it is assessed and how this changes from MYP 1 to MYP 5. Then I'll share some tips about how to prepare. There are 5 strands to this criterion. Think of them as the process of using maths to respond to a real-life scenario. First of all, you need to understand the situation. What's actually happening? What is the problem asking? Can you pull out the important information and ignore what isn't relevant? Secondly, decide on a strategy that fits. This could be using percentages to work out a price after discount, or using trigonometry to find a missing distance. This is not required in the lower levels, so up to level 4 for MYP 1 and level 2 in the other years, the approach to take should be clear. This might mean that the problem to solve has several parts, with the first one having a defined approach which you just need to apply. Then in later parts, you'll need to figure out the correct strategy yourself. Strand 3. Carry out the strategy you've chosen or been given using the correct steps. This part might also involve interpreting your solution to solve a bigger problem. Maybe your result needs to help you make a decision. For example, maybe you worked out the price of an item by applying the discount, but the actual question is, should you buy it? So answering this question is solving the problem, not just finding the cost. There may be several valid answers or just one correct one. You may also give a logical proposal, but based on incorrect maths, or you may not reach a solution at all. These possible outcomes are reflected in the different levels of this strand. Strand 4 is about accuracy. This means being critical of the numbers you used, the strategy you chose, and how you dealt with your final answers. Maybe the original price was $19.99, but you chose to round to $20 for ease. Maybe after applying the discount and adding tax, you got a recurring decimal, but you know that money has to be written to 2 decimal places. Maybe you converted the price to euros, but was it using the most up-to-date conversion rate? Was the 40% discount applicable to all the items in store, or did the background info say it was for select items? Ask yourself, if this scenario happened in real life, why might I not get this exact value? The development of this strand is describe and explain in MYP 1 to 3, moving up to including justification from MYP 4. So you really want to bring in specific information from the context to back up your statements. Then make clear links between their impact and what you are claiming. Then the 5th strand, check if your answer makes sense. This means interpreting your final answer in the context of the real problem. 2 perspectives are, does the number seem reasonable, and were there other things to consider? So if after applying the discount, I get an answer of $24, I know that my answer does not make sense, as it can't be more expensive than the original price. Then, considering the big question, should I buy this? So maybe it is in my budget, but I need to consider, can I get it cheaper somewhere else? Do I trust it was made ethically in this shop? Is the quality of the item good enough? Is there an extra cost for shipping? Ask yourself, how do my calculations answer the big question, and what doesn't the maths tell me? In MYP 1, you need to be able to state if it makes sense, and then describe. In MYP 2 and 3, you move from describing to discussing and then explaining. The command term discuss hints at the clue that you need to bring in multiple perspectives, or strengths and limitations. Then MYP 4 and 5, we again have discuss and explain, but then the top level requires justification. So after looking at those multiple perspectives, reviewing the evidence and weighing up the strengths and limitations, what is your final conclusion and why? So some tips for preparing for Criterion D. Throughout your unit, make sure you connect every skill you learn to the real world. This might be covered in class, but be sure to do your own research too. Also, don't only know how strategies can be used, but know their limitations as well. For example, maybe adding interest to savings in the bank over several years can be found using decimal multipliers. But that ignores if money is withdrawn during that time. Or maybe finding the typical time it takes students to get to school could be found by looking at the mean. But then you need to appreciate that this is highly skewed if one student lives 3 hours away, and you might consider removing this outlier or using a different strategy, such as finding the median. The next tip is to develop your reading comprehension skills. Some of these real-life problems can get quite wordy, and not all of the information given to you is always needed. Some strategies may be skim reading to get an overview of the problem, highlighting key values and numbers, crossing out irrelevant information, underlining contextual phrases that might affect accuracy, summarising each paragraph, creating visual models to support what you read, drawing arrows from keywords to strategies or concepts that you believe they link to. The list goes on. Just try some strategies. The MYP is a 5-year journey, so it's okay if it takes some trial and error until you find the right approach for you. The next tip is to practice estimating before answering a question. For our example, if I need to calculate 40% of 1999, I might estimate by thinking, half of 20 is 10, so my answer should be a bit more than 10 because 40% isn't up to half off. So when I get a final answer of $11.99 after rounding, I know that this answer makes sense because it's slightly bigger than 10. You should practice estimating all the time, not just in class. Estimate how long it will take you to get somewhere. Estimate the cost of a shopping trip before paying. Estimate how many steps between 2 points. Just strengthen that number sense so that it will hopefully be super obvious if you get a number that doesn't seem reasonable. And the final tip, know your calculator. Real-life problems and values aren't always easy to work with, so you may be able to use your calculator. But don't rely on it, and definitely don't say, my answer makes sense because my calculator said so. Some calculators need brackets when working with negative numbers. Some require you to press several buttons to activate a power or exponent. If you type something in wrong, or you just don't know how to use it in the assessment, you lose the advantage of this valuable resource. So make sure you bring your calculator every lesson and that this is the same one you'll use in the assessment. Remember, even after using the calculator, check it against your estimate or just reflect on your number in context. Does it make sense? 3,000 minutes to walk to the shops or 186 eggs needed for a cake should ring alarm bells. So that's it. Check out the other videos about criteria A, B, and C to get to know what else you can expect in MYP Maths.